The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God. Welcome in. So good to be with you. Well, if you take a look around America today, you're probably going to notice it's not going so well. And you could point to a whole bunch of different areas in America and say, that's not right. That's not good. We could do better here. Healthcare, our urban city decay, the deceit amongst our political leaders. We're not being told the truth. Our foreign wars, our out of control spending, the national debt, our consumer credit card debt. You could look at all of those things and say, it's not going well in America. And is it sustainable? Is $40 trillion in debt sustainable? Is 25% interest on a credit card that's maxed out? Is that sustainable for the American people? But see, America's built on debt. So it has to be sustained for those in power. And for us, it's the only way to survive. Very few people are able to maintain incredible credit card discipline. And that's why we have record credit card debt here in America. And again, we're America first, only forever from this point forward. This globalization, helping the world out of poverty, diminishing our dollar so we could uplift some tribe in Africa or somewhere in Southeast Asia, that has been done at the demise of the American dream, the American prosperity. Just go back 45 years ago. Moms weren't working full time. Salaries, one father's salary could cover a home, a car, a couple of kids, and things weren't maxed to the brim, stressed out all night, all day about the next bill. I'm not suggesting that the consumer doesn't have a responsibility in their choices and their spending and their lifestyles, but we've set the system up to where debt is required to continue the country at its current tempo. And so we hit a point in which there's no money left. Right? So you might look at that area of America and say, that's not going very well. You could look at other areas and say, well, look at our urban cities, look at our Black culture. Look at how they have rotted away 13% of the population committing 50% of the violent crimes here in America. And you must be saying, we've got to be able to do better than that, right? Don't the people in our urban cities, the good ones, the decent people, the ones that just want to live their lives and scratch out an earning, don't they deserve a better life? And of course they do. But we don't have anybody coming to call out the conduct, the misconduct, the foul conduct in our urban cities. In fact, we have the exact opposite. We have political leaders that want to support and sustain the status quo in urban America. And it's coming at the demise of the country. You cannot have a group of 13% of the country behaving, living in such an uncivilized, violent manner. It doesn't work, and it's not working in Black culture. It's not working in our inner cities. So you might look at that and say, it's not going well in America. You might look to our political leaders and ask yourself, when's the last time we got the truth? When's the last time we got the straight story from any political leader right now in government? Go 40 years back. When's the last time you can say, they're telling the truth, they're fighting for me, and they're going to deliver? It's not happening right now. Didn't happen under Joe Biden, didn't happen under Trump's first term. It's certainly not happening right now under this current term. You might say it's not going well in America. We seem to be spending all of our time in foreign wars. A $1.5 trillion military budget is the ask for 2027. And so you might ask yourself, well, geez, I wonder if there's any issues in America for 1.5 trillion per year that we could improve, enhance, or eliminate. Could you eliminate homelessness, drug addiction, poverty, abuse, prostitution, drug dealing? Could you eliminate all that with $1.5 trillion a year? And the answer is, of course you could, because we could build mental institutions. We can build hospitals. We can build more and more jails for those that just don't want to figure it out. We can do all that and have a lot left over with 1.5 trillion. You could hire as many cops as you want. Limitless numbers of cops and agents working the streets in which all of this is going on in LA, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Baltimore, New Orleans, Memphis. I'm talking about our really rough places, drug infested, gang infested, violence overcoming communities. Do you think you could get rid of that for 1.5 trillion a year? And the answer is, of course you could. You could do anything you want in America for $1.5 trillion per year, but that's what they're going to ask for in this NDAA that is still being passed back and forth between Senate and the House. It also includes, of course, the merger with Israel, and that still sits on the Senate's docket to be addressed. You might look at all of those things we've mentioned and say, yeah, I think we could do better in America. And I also wonder if those things are not causing the decay and eventual collapse of a once great country. And you'd be right about that. But I think the biggest thing that has to stop in America today is the lying that comes from government, comes from media, and then is brainwashed the culture. The culture has never been more divided. You and I can see that in the most simple of conversations. If you dare mention the COVID shot and that it by any means hurt a person or somehow was not effective in stopping the transmission of COVID-19, which it's obviously clear it did not. Cleveland Clinic study, 51,000 cohorts. The more COVID shots you took, the more COVID you got, right? And we can't come to a consensus on that as a population. We're a democracy with supposedly two choices, and neither one of those choices are actually doing the will of the people. And I think that's clear. So let's go through some stuff that simply must be addressed, has to be dealt with, has to bring unity amongst the people, or you can forget it. There is no point in any of this stuff anymore. Paying taxes, voting, pretending like you can get ahead, buy a home, start a family. Don't need to worry about any of all that, because if the lying doesn't stop, you and I are toast. And we've been toast for some time. That's why our wives work full time. That's why we're stretched to the brim financially. That's why things are more stressful than ever. We're the most mentally ill country on the planet. The United States is. And of course, you know that, you see that. And it's not just in our homeless, drug abusing population. It's not just them. This is our everyday MAGA person and our everyday way out there on the left person that is willing to die on issues that mean nothing because they have a political hero that they are saying, I'll do and go for whatever this person says because that's where my faith is. So you know what you really have? You have a godlessness problem. Once God came out of the culture, go back to the 60s, can't teach God in school. Women become liberated. Abortion is now talk of the town. Everybody's doing them. Okay. That moment, you saw a very significant drop in the quality of morale, in the quality of ethics, in the amount of violence that we've seen, and the amount of corruption in government that we've seen. That all has been starting and going and ticking, and here it is. It's right in our face now with serious repercussions for the, quite frankly, abandonment of duty from our political leaders. And we, the people, are just as guilty. The founding fathers said, vigilance. We have to be vigilant if you want to protect your freedom. And we haven't been doing that. We've fallen asleep at the wheel. We've said, I'm sure these guys have our best interest in mind. And as it turns out, none of them have our best interest in mind. Name a politician who does what he says, follows through, and then comes back to we the people and says, what do you want done next? Because I work for you. We forgot that they are our employee. We forgot that we pay their salary. We forgot that we own the country, right? We need to remember that. And it's not Democrat and Republicans that we're trying to, no. We the people versus a government that has grown out of control, that has spent out of control, and is now lying their way out of any accountability to anything that they do. We have the Iran war is a wonderful one to look at. I want to touch on that before we get into some, how do we change the trajectory? Major course correction, 911 here in America. And that's our only singular focus. We don't care what's going on in India or China or Israel or Ukraine or Iran. None of those things matter when your own people are suffering to the degree that ours are. Okay. So if you look at the Iran war, of course, February 28th, we bombed the kill the Ayatollah. It's a surprise attack. We bombed the schoolgirls, 186 dead. Right? This war was advertised as being done in 2 days. And if you remember the famous lines, Donald Trump says their navy is at the bottom of the sea. We've obliterated their army. We've obliterated their nuclear ambitions. He declared victory just 2 days in. And of course, that wasn't true. We went back and forth. And 4 weeks in, we declared victory. This thing is over. We've got a deal signed. We just need to get the pen over to Pakistan. JD's on his way. This thing is done. We were told that 4 weeks in. We've seen gas prices kind of move the whole way. Notice how oil is going down. Gas prices still $4.11, $4.20 all over the country. Why is that? Why is that happening? We talk about that too. But we've been told for many months now that this war is over, that Iran is begging for a deal, that they have no more abilities militarily. They've been set back decades, but yet they're still fighting. Yet they still have closed the Strait of Hormuz. It is closed, even though President Trump will talk all the time that there's business happening in the Strait of Hormuz, negotiations as well as commerce. That's not true. Prior to February 28th, the Strait of Hormuz would see between 100 and 140 vessels per day cross that with safe passage. Post February 28th, okay, that number is 6 in, 6 out. That's on a daily basis. They're carrying oil, fertilizer, energy resources. That's all they're doing in the Strait of Hormuz. There's no cruises going on. We're not shipping fruit through there. This is energy, and it's come to a standstill in the Strait of Hormuz. And so that's the leverage piece for Iran. Trump was told that that would be used as leverage if you were to ever attack Iran. They went for it anyways. On the behalf of Israel, we owed them apparently the $18 billion a year that they get, the military resources that they get, we got your back in everything you get yourself into. That wasn't enough. We still owed them Iran. And Trump bought that one hook, line, and now sinking the country as a result, because it feels much more like a forever war than it does a 2-week or a 4-week war. That this was one, done, signing the deal, we're out of there. Thank me later. We've saved the world from Iran having a nuclear weapon. And that was the march. That was the chant. That was the whistle. If anytime President Trump said it, or Secretary Hegseth said it, we cannot ever allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Supporters on the right, of course, there's no support on the left for this war. There's very little support in the country. Only 30% of the people right now in America, and this is how we know we're not being served, only 30% of the people in America support a war in Iran and a continued military operation in Iran. 30%. Under a third of the country has given their blessing to the use of their tax dollars and their sons and their resources to the war in Iran. Okay, that's not doing the will of the people. That's doing the will of those in charge and those that are monetizing the war in Iran. Okay, we know Don Jr., he's invested in a drone company. We now fight with drones. Iran is fighting with drones. We're fighting with jets. We're going to have to buy a ton of drones. This is how it's fought. Ukraine and Russia, that's how they're fighting. Ukraine is almost exclusively a drone military, and they're cheaper. They accomplish near the same, but yet they cost a fraction. So we're going to have to catch up with that. But of course, Don Jr. owning that company, owning stock, investing in a drone company during a drone war doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel like it's the will of the people, but maybe to the interest of those who stand to benefit from a long, ongoing war. I want to remind us that after September 11th, and we went into Afghanistan, we went into Iraq, we were there for 20 years, 2001 to 2021. We spent $2 trillion and lost thousands of soldiers. And the ones that weren't killed, well, they're here, and they're now in many cases mentally ill, PTSD, wrecked for life, having no purpose in life, feeling like they went over and killed 1 million Iraqis. For what? Is the Middle East better now? Is Iraq a better country? Is it a democracy? Do they have an Abe Lincoln running Iraq? Of course not. It's run by terrorists and chaos. And we knew that going in. But $2 trillion, that money got spread around to a lot of contractors. A lot of politicians made a ton of money, incoming campaign contributions to keep that war going. And they did it for 20 years. That's breathtaking when you think about it. It's breathtaking to think that we went over there to fight terrorists and then left it in charge of terrorists. The terrorists run the Middle East right now, at least the regions that we've stuck our hand in, and decimated its population, decimated its leadership. And oh, by the way, this is a news flash to every U.S. politician. No country in the Middle East is seeking a democracy. That's not how their culture is built. That's not what the people are saying we need. They're fine the way they are. It's just that doesn't work when you have a war machine that wants to get turned on literally year over year. So if remember the timeline too on Afghanistan and Iraq, we left in August of 2021. By February of 22, so 6 months later, we are all in the war in Ukraine. And so they really never even had a loss of paycheck. If you were in the defense machine, the contractors, the behemoth that gets fed during war, they took a 6-month vacation and then they started making money again. Remember, close to $300 billion in money and equipment has already been sent to Ukraine. Approximately 1 million Ukraine Russian soldiers are dead. And we're only, what, 4 years into this war? And we've got 1 million dead over there. Ukraine as a country has been decimated. The men that have all either left or they've been killed in war. So they have very old people in Ukraine and young people, and then women. And then many of the women have left too. So even if the war ended tomorrow, Ukraine is going to be an immigrant haven. It's going to be a settler's haven. It's never going to be a country again. And it started as the most corrupt country in Europe. And we went over and did this on their behalf. Does that sound like the will of the people? And of course, will of the people, there's nobody. I can't think of anybody in my social circle, at church, at Bible study, at work, that is still passionate that we stay in the Ukraine war. I've never met that person. And most likely you haven't either. But most politicians are still giving their blessing to billions of dollars going out the door. And so we know we're in tough shape when so few support such an epic venture like war, Iran, Ukraine, and we're looking for more. Trust me, this is not something that you can just turn on and off. This is an addict. And so he has to come off. He always has to have a little drip of war in his blood, in his veins, or he's going to have a seizure. He's going to freak out. We could lose him. Okay. We've become addicted to the war. And now they want 1.5 trillion for military budget 2027. How can that be? What on earth ambitions would you have to request that kind of money for 1 year, just 1 year? And they're going to come back for more, at least the same, but probably more in 28. So I just ask our war hawk friends, those that say, no, we need to have the biggest, the best, the most expensive, and our hand in everything in the world. How do you sustain a $1.5 trillion per year military in perpetuity? How do you do it? And of course, you can't do it. And they know we can't do it. And that's why the will of the people is clearly being ignored. We asked at the top of the show, what issues in America do you think you could solve, permanently resolve, for $1.5 trillion? I can't think of a single. I mean, that's brand new airports in every city. That's brand new bridges and roads. And basically the entire $1.5 trillion per year, you get to spend on whatever the United States needs. You want to stop immigrant invasions like we had under Joe Biden? Just a little fraction of that money seals the border. You can do Canada too. We don't need free flow anymore. America has been abused. Call it kindness, call it ignorance, call it willful ignorance. Either way, we're full. We're too full. And of course, we can't even get a grasp on the population. We have so many undocumented people, illegal people here, some voting, some doing this, some getting driver's license, some getting jobs. We have no clue what's going on. And there's not another country in the world that operates like that. Not one, just here. Why? Because we're so rich. That's not my experience the average person does not come across or think they're rich here in America. Yeah, they have much nicer stuff than the huts in India or Africa, but that's not apples to apples. This is America, and it was built on great workmanship, great minds, great ethics. It was a Christian-based, Bible-based country, and that's where you draw your ethics from, your morals from, and we abandoned that. And so now we're seeing the consequences of really nice stuff, really powerful people, and now a population that has become weaker due to debt, due to stress, the fact that we have to go, sorry, mom, I know you'd like to stay home with the kids today. You can't. You have to go do paperwork for this man 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Did you think that was the dream when you saw? Of course not. Of course, that's no mother's dream. No mother is going to be laying on her deathbed at 90 years old, got her 5 kids. She's never going to say, I so regret I didn't put in that extra shift. I didn't get overtime as a secretary. I wish I would have just pushed one more paper out there. No mom is ever going to say that, of course. She's going to say, son of a gun, how many years did I blow having to work to keep up with the Joneses, to keep up with inflation, to keep up with the basic necessities to be a person, a citizen in America. So she'll regret the work. She'll have missed the time with the children. And so we were never supposed to operate that way, right? It wasn't built that way. There was a window in time up until maybe the 90s where that American dream, when you think about the American dream, does it include mom being a CEO or a lawyer full time or busting it every day to make a buck? Did that ever sound like that was part of the American dream? Of course not. Of course not. But we've perverted the American dream. And now it is this: work harder, save more, wait longer to buy a house. Of course, go get an expensive education that you'll never use. It's going to be covered by the government and you'll owe the government for life, slavery for life to the government, because you did $150,000, $200,000 a year at a prestigious university. But the degree didn't matter. Everybody has a degree now. If you don't have a degree, you can participate in so many things in this country, occupation. And quite frankly, it's the blue collar jobs that we used to turn our nose up to: the plumber, the electrician, the handyman, the guy that can fix everything. Those kind of guys, they're doing just great in this economy. They're doing a different work though than I don't know, the customer service guy that works at home. He's been virtual since COVID, and he's answering questions and doing live chats. Those kind of jobs, those are gone. And so the blue collar guy survives, of course, but the blue collar guy also might need his wife to work full time or sacrifice a home, sacrifice children, sacrifice a lot of basics, because a $50,000, an $85,000, $100,000 salary today, not what it was in 1985, 95, 2005. My friend, I have a great buddy. We were talking about inflation, and it was 2005. He was making $38,000 a year at Schwab. Okay. Junior broker guy. He was living in a decent little apartment in a decent part of town. It's $500 a month. Had a little Japanese car, Corolla type car, $300 a month. Okay. He still had money left over to drink beer, party, do things like that at $38,000 a year in income. Try to find those living situations to 2026. Just go 21 years later, $38,000. Are you kidding me? Who could make it on $38,000? $83,000 is a stretch. $100,000 just gets you above water. Your nose is above the water. You might be able to stay here for just a little bit. That's $100,000 today. And so, of course, our wages are never going to keep up with this inflation. And of course, and they know that they have credit and debt always available for the American consumer. So don't let your paycheck discourage you. You can still spend and keep up. And we've got Capital One and all these wonderful venture, all these wonderful things, and they'll take good care of you. 25% interest on your credit card should be illegal, should absolutely be illegal. And in fact, when the mob was loaning money at those rates, they did call it illegal, called it loan sharking, and they arrested them, charged them, jailed them. And then credit cards do that test. I thought that was a wonderful point when you point out the juxtaposition. Perfectly fine that Visa does it. Perfectly fine that MasterCard does it. Those are all wonderful institutions. We owe them. The mob does it. Completely criminal. Put them in jail, lock them up, right? So, of course, we're not getting the will of the people done. We're inflated. We're in too many wars. We're not getting the truth. We're not healthy as Americans, right? So we have to look at a couple of things: the physical health, the spiritual health, emotional health. Physical health, just so we're clear, the food in America is terrible. The worst ingredients, terrible for you. And you can look this stuff up. It's because of our intensive use of corn syrup, everything that is associated with, and it's saturated the American food supply. We spray our foods. Most countries would never allow glyphosate on their food. We allow it here. And what do we do also in America? We don't even hold the makers of those chemicals liable if it hurts us. Endocrine disruptors, also a carcinogenic. If it gives us cancer, it's not their problem. Government has said, we need your pesticides. We're willing to do this immunity. And of course, it's outrageous to suggest that that's the will of the people. Much like vaccines, pesticides, hard, heavy duty chemical makers that cause cancer will also be immune from any health related concern that you get as a farmer, as a consumer of glyphosate food. You can't sue them. Not their problem. Your kid, and I just heard this story today at our office. Mother called, 4 years old, has been getting regular vaccine. This mother is a vaccine enthusiast. She has been on board since day one. This is the kind of mother that would also do the Hep B shot within the first hour of life. And even Democrats, give me a break. Even that's foul. Even that's unnecessary, that a 1-day-old be vaccinated for a disease that is caught through sex and IV drug use. Come on, what 1-day-old, 1 hour old, 1 second old person is in that lifestyle? And here's the deal. They'll say, well, but there's children that could be born to parents. That's a small percentage, but you're giving it to every single baby. And it's also a great time to say, so you have prostitution in the home and IV drug use in the home, and you want to take this child into that home? I don't think so. And they never even see that child. So once again, that child not every child should be vaccinated for hepatitis B, right? But even if that killed your baby, hurt your baby, didn't even work for your baby, they still got Hep B, you cannot hold a vaccine maker liable. Why is that? Every other product. If your car seatbelt does not function in your car wreck due to manufacturer error or stuff they did not disclose, did not test for, you can sue Toyota. Absolutely, you'll be rich. Their vaccine hurts your baby. Sorry. So anyways, this mother has been on board with all the vaccine, now has a 4-year-old. After her last wellness visit, the same night, started having seizures. They accumulated up to, she was having 25 seizures a day, day after day, the same day as the vaccine. Every doctor she went to, the hospital she went to, the pediatrician she went to, those aren't related. So just so we're clear, a child that's never had a seizure in their life goes to their wellness appointment, gets a vaccine, and has instant seizures and ongoing seizures since that moment in time, and those aren't connected, fine. It's a one-off, but it's not. You know how many times kids have had seizures after? Just in the last 1 year, I've had at least a half a dozen of those stories. We started having seizures after, that wasn't their first vaccine. We're not saying, oh, one vaccine and you do it. It's an accumulation of toxicity, and you have no idea year after year, your terrain, your immune system, your microbiome, different. Here comes the perfect storm. That shot causes a seizure. We know it's causing blood-brain barrier crossage, and we have brain damage. So they did a surgery on the brain. They medicate the child, taking an anti-seizure medication. Again, up to 25 seizures a day, and you're telling me these things aren't connected? The coincidence, the shame on you. The nerve to try and tell us that we can't see. Yeah, one coincidence, got it, no problem. 50,000 of them? Sorry, we're not that stupid, but they pretend that we are all the time. That's not the will of the people. We have it reversed. This mother's going to seek treatment. This mother's going to seek detoxification. Of course, abstain from vaccinating ever again. That's the one thing you always do. The moment you're vaccine injured, you abstain from vaccination, and you knew that. And unfortunately, it's a vaccine injury that hurts a child, that makes you stop. Hurt my child, now we'll stop. I wish I would have known this information sooner. So of course, I don't even know what the vaccine was for that she was getting. It doesn't matter. The doctor said she's this many years old. Great. She gets one of these, one of these, one of these. And why? The CDC said so. The assumption with vaccines is that if we didn't have them, the species, human race, we're gone. We're done. We're toast. We will not make it as a species if we don't have vaccines in the culture. That's what they're telling you. That is a lie. It's insane, actually. You didn't have regular vaccines until what, 1960, 1950, 75? How in the world did the human race get to 1950 from day one until 1950s, the 60s? How did they do it without vaccines? And they'll say, well, yeah, our life expectancy is so much lower. Well, maybe. It's certainly not doing this anymore. You think the kids that are getting 72 vaccines, that are obese, that have ADD, that are eating the most poisonous food America has ever presented to its people, you think that kid's going to outlive his grandma who ate out of a farm fresh, picked her own garden, cooked meals. They didn't go out. They didn't have fake food back then. You had to make the food. Uh, and mothers could, they weren't working full time. So in the 30s and the 40s, and they could make food and it wasn't already destroyed by chemicals and processing and food dyes and all these things that they're doing to the food. You think that the kids today are going to outlive them? How? They're overweight, they're over medicated, and they're just getting started. See, if you're under 40 or over 40 years old today, right now, you've had less vaccines in your life than a American child is going to have in the first year of life. If you're born in the 80s, you had like 3 vaccines. They're going to get 3 that first day. They're going to get 1 in the first hour. That kid's going to outlive his grandma? I don't think so. I don't think so. And so we have decreasing life expectancy. And from the government's perspective, that's good. Because when you turn 65, 66 here in America, you start costing the government a tremendous amount of money. You've got Social Security coming in. We got Medicare coming in. Whatever happens to me, government's got me covered. My health can go to, and they'll take care of it. And they're in and out of the hospitals. And I remember my grandfather had end of life stage 4 lung cancer, 76 years old, smoked for 50 years. And they still went ahead and did $100,000 chemo, radiation, all the whole works. Just end of life quality, just right down here. Terrible end of life. They made $100,000 on somebody that was going to die within a year, anyways. Died within 6 months of the diagnosis. So it was absolutely an abuse of the Medicare system. So when you turn 65, 66 here in America, you're a very expensive person to our government. You really think they want you living into your 90s and 100s and paying that? A husband and wife on Medicare for 50 years, that's the average. I don't think they want that. Of course, they don't want that. So they have no problem letting us eat ourselves to death, medicate ourselves to death, spray ourselves to death. They spray our food, they spray our skies. They're introducing chemicals to us all the time, again, against the will of the people. Most ingredients, if you just understood what they are, that they're a science experiment, they're in your food, preserving your food, making your food addictive. If you understood those basic facts, you would reject them. Even if you're a Democrat, even if you're a Republican, you would reject the fact that I don't know that I want my kid having that many chemicals. We're not reading the labels. We're not reading any labels. If we were, these places would all be out of business. They're this long in America. The rest of the world, they're like this. Do you accept that? Why would you accept that? Is that the will of the people, that the most toxic, it's also most expensive here, the most expensive, the most toxic ingredients that they can physically put in there, we have to accept, but Europe doesn't, or Russia doesn't? Why do we have to accept such poisonous food, such chemical-ridden food, and the rest of the world says, yeah, you're not going to feed our people that. Change the ingredients so you can't sell it. So Lucky Charms says no problems. You name it, you name the brand, it looks different here than in Europe. Well, why? They can't spray their food in Europe. Glyphosate is illegal in Europe. Here, it's no problem. Why? Australia is very similar. Why? Why is it they seem to have a more in-depth responsibility for their people than our government does? Why does our FDA rubber stamp Moderna's brand new, super rushed? And I know Tom Renz is doing some great work on this right now too. So in the fall, you will have your first ever mRNA flu vaccine from Moderna called Influziva. That's going to be available, rubber stamped 9-0 Donald Trump's FDA. Now, Maha says a couple of things. Maha says, make America healthy again. It includes the medicine, it includes the food. Okay. So we can't have our sprayed food, chemical filled. You can't put that food in. We need the European labels. We demand more from food makers selling to our people in America. Don't you want that? Whether you're Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. Don't you think you should have the highest standard of food available for you and your child in a country with so much money and can physically do it? They're proving it in other countries. Why do the labels look different? It's not acceptable. It's not the will of the people. So we've got it backwards again still. So you talk and look at all these things. It says, well, geez, I think it makes sense why America's not doing so well right now. And then you look at this. What are the things that we have to address to get a new start, to get a fresh takeoff here. We don't have so much vision. We don't have so much deceit. What do we need to do? What do we need to clean up to make sure we can move forward? And guess what? None of the things I'm about to mention would allow us to have a country if actually fessed up to by our government. It's a country ending, chaos inducing, never ending civil war in America if the government actually had to come clean or was exposed, caught red-handed. You cannot deny this. Any of these things, it's over for America. And that's why we won't see them. But they're things we must have prior to getting our country back again. You got to have these things cleaned up. Okay. I think with the most recent one, and the one that probably affected the most, the one that's going to be the trickiest, the toughest, because it's so partisan, is COVID-19. The elements of COVID-19, the origin, the vaccine, the cover-up, those things all have to be made right in the public's view. It has to be consensus. Hardcore Democrat, hardcore Republican. They lied about COVID. They made it in a lab and the COVID shot was poison. That's being declared. Okay. That should not be a partisan issue. COVID is a partisan issue, and it's disgraceful that it is. You have Trump hating Democrats supporting, praising, defending Tony Fauci. Tony Fauci should not be partisan to the American people. What he did was criminal. He is going to be charged with contempt. Remember, he took the fifth 111 times. He won't answer any questions, even though he has a pardon. You cannot arrest him, jail him for any other things. 2014 to 2024, Joe Biden signed it. You can't touch him. So it is actually illegal what Tony Fauci did. That's why he's being charged. You can't take the fifth when you have a pardon on the question that you are pleading the fifth around, right? It doesn't work that way. Hey, we already told you you're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to then withhold the information from us and get both, okay? So he will have to go to jail. He's 85 years old, 86 years old turning. I don't think he does well in jail, even if it only is 1 year. And it's a 1 year, should be convicted, should be like one of the easiest cases to ever win. The law says you can't do this. And in fact, we can prove on video Tony Fauci did the thing you can't do 111 times. Yeah, I think that's a great case. And I think he has to spend a year in jail. That's not a partisan issue. So you can be a Democrat. I think that's wonderful. Be a Democrat. And you can be a Republican. That's awesome. I'm so glad you have a team to cheer for. What Tony Fauci did has nothing to do with either. Of course, Tony Fauci is a Democrat. And of course, the masks are a Democrat thing. The vaccine is a Democrat thing. But the fact that he lied to you, betrayed you because he's on your team, he gets a pass. That's okay. It's not okay. You pay for him. You've made him a very wealthy man. It's not okay for him to lie to you. It's not okay for him to have hurt as many people as he did. How did he hurt people? Well, he endorsed a shot that was neither safe or effective. He promoted masking on our children. He himself had said that he wore up to 2 masks regularly for double protection. He caught COVID 4 times during the era. I'm sorry, he was taking vaccines. He was wearing masks. He was catching COVID. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, that should be analyzed and says, you were lying this entire time. You misled my family and I. And we really resent that because we pay your salary and we really depended on our experts. Remember, trust the experts. Tony Fauci was science. He declared himself science. In fact, he's world famous for saying, if you attack me, then you are attacking the very nature of science. He is science. He wrote in his diary that he is officially the world's most famous scientist. Zionist. I don't think he's Zionist. Scientist. That should offend you no matter your political affiliation, right? He lied to us. Okay. But the problem with COVID-19, it's the most partisan issue on the table. Nothing even remotely close to both sides. It has vaccine haters that say, I wouldn't touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't give that to a death row inmate. They want nothing to do with that vaccine. You have ones on the left that have signed up for regular injections of the COVID shot since 2020, and they are still current on their boosters today. gentleman today on Facebook. He took all the 6 in that first round of recommendation and 2 a year since 2021. Are you nuts? And he says he's never gotten COVID and all these things. You have that person going against the person that says I wouldn't touch it. Shouldn't be like that. What we can show you, prove to you, is that the government had patents on this vaccine well in advance, that the research that was created to do this Wuhan virus was illegal. It was being done behind the back. It was being done in a backdoor way. Of course, they made the virus at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. It then shipped to Wuhan, China. Here's where I'm at with that part. I don't know if at that time, on that day, it was ordered to be released. This is when we want to start the pandemic. Or did it get out early? Was it a slippage? Was it still under development and somebody did get sick and get out? I don't know that yet. And I know we never know that probably. We can't even get consensus on, okay, did it come from a bat at Wuhan? Did it come from a pangolin in Wuhan? Or did it come from the Wuhan Viral Institute right there? Institute of Virology is here. Wet market is here. Outbreak is here. What do you think it was? And of course, we know it was, in fact, a lab created. That's why it was so contagious. Okay. They don't just go animal to human right there without modification. That's documented. That's well known. There has to be an evolutionary process, and they can't find COVID in the wild. You notice how they haven't found the population of bats, or they haven't found the source. They're almost suggesting that this virus came out of nowhere, spent one day at the wet market, left, and evaporated, went back to outer space or wherever they're saying it came from. It can't happen the way they said it. Now, whether you're Democrat or Republican, it shouldn't matter. They lied to you, and they could have got you really hurt, right? That's a problem, and we can't have consensus on that. So COVID must be made right for us to have a country that is got a shot again. It has to be made right. Will of the people says we need the truth on it. Democrats should want it as much as Republicans. If Tony Fauci is God himself and that he did save mankind, don't you want to hear from him? Give him some credit. Give him some time on the stage to say, this is what I did. You should be thanking me. You should be kissing my feet if I'm Tony Fauci and I'm just and I'm righteous. And of course, he's not. And so even with a full presidential pardon that would have covered all of his COVID. See, they went back because a lot of this gain of function research is now captured in the 2014 to 2024. So he was never going to get in trouble for his COVID crimes. And yet he committed a crime to cover up. I mean, isn't that how it always goes? Commit a crime, make another crime, cover it up. He's covered up a crime with a crime, and he will have to pay for this one. But not as he should, because of course the damage he caused to America and the setback to our children ruined our economy permanently. What do you do to a guy like that to get it even? You really can't. I mean, mass murderer, Hitler style stuff. I mean, I don't know. The global was about 15 million dead. Is that all Tony Fauci? Well, I'll tell you, it is. Every single death is his fault. If in fact he was fully aware of the gain of function research to create SARS-CoV-2. That makes him an all-time mass murderer. And the indication is that he was a part of this gain of function the entire time. He knew about COVID and where it was at, SARS-CoV-2. He knew it was in development, and he knew it would be a pandemic. And in fact, many years prior, he predicted we will have a pandemic because he knew he was making it. And what did we get? Voila, Wuhan 19, the Chinese special, the lab one made one, and then it changed America forever, right? So that whole ordeal has to be made right. It's the toughest one because it's the most it's too emotional for Democrats. There's too much anger on the anti-vaxxers, or was. I don't know. There's a lot of validation, justification, but it's partisan. For sure, right? If you said no to the vaccine and said no to the masks and said no to all of the fear and the hysteria, I don't think you're bitter and resentful. I think you're saying, I told you so. Are you listening? Are you willing to listen next time? Do you want to learn more about things that your government is doing to you? I think you feel a lot more like that. I know I certainly don't feel great inside, but look at what COVID revealed to us. It revealed so much to us, and it sort of set this is what government is willing to do. And let's see if you can do anything about it. And COVID was an F as far as a response, a miserable F. The American people did a terrible job. We allowed government, governors, states to do wicked things, and they had actually Democrat support. Governors that were Gavin Newsom's closing churches. They were doing it in Washington. They were having people on the left celebrate that while they were rioting for George Floyd. Remember, we had COVID in March of 2020, and then George Floyd was Memorial Day just a couple of months later. I mean, talk about two events just converging. Again, George Floyd huffed all the pills he had on him. He already had a heart condition. He was already caught using fake money. He huffed those pills. He had a heart attack. Derek Chauvin was doing as trained. The prone position, the Minnesota Police Department handbook proves that. So, of course, Trump could pardon him and kind of get this thing over with. He's not going to touch some of this stuff, but let me at least throw a bone. I'm not going to make America great again. I'm not going to make America healthy again. It's not America first. I'll throw you a bone. I'll release Derek Chauvin, reopen the case. I mean, you had perjury all over the Derek Chauvin case. His own boss, this is unbelievable, his own captain denied the fact that Minnesota, the police department, has ever trained the prone position, the knee on the back, flat on the stomach. It's in their handbook, and it could be shown at court. It was in their handbook. Other officers testified that that's how they were trained. His own captain perjured himself and said, we don't train that. We don't do that. Okay. So Trump could get some good graces going, get Derek Chauvin out of jail, reopen the investigation that this was a complete fixed job. I don't know. Was George Floyd a pre-planned thing to help us with the COVID movement, distract a little bit from the COVID deceit? Or was it spontaneous and they seized the moment? That's a great question. You know what I mean? We know he wasn't murdered. We know something happened. It probably wasn't staged like that. So I think they just seized in a wonderful moment and said, let's get riots going. Remember burning cities. Remember people getting killed. Chaz, the Seattle area where you couldn't go in there. They were going to run their own society. It was the mayor of Seattle. It was going to be a summer of love. And it was some bizarre times, right? That one we're not going to deal with right now as a part of this list, but you must have clarity. We must have something done about COVID, the origins, the vaccines, the figures, the numbers, the fraud. Bad things happened during COVID. We need to right that ship before we move forward as a country. I think that's unanimous. Democrats that are cheering on the government response shouldn't be doing that because it hurt you. And they were just using you. They knew you were scared and they played into that fear, and you turned against your fellow American because they wouldn't wear a mask. They didn't want a vaccine. They didn't care about the 6 feet social distancing, right? You turned on them because they wouldn't comply. Not that every baby boomer conservative on the right, 80% of the country got the COVID shot that first round, 80% of the country. So we had Republicans, we had conservatives, we had boomers, we had MAGA, we had all of them get there no better. I don't think that the baby boomer MAGA voter, 62 to 80 years old, I don't think they were shaming others if they chose not to get the vaccine. Like I saw the left shame every single person that dare said ivermectin, that dare said, I don't wear a mask. I'm not doing vaccines. That really made them mad. They wanted blood for that. And of course, all the late night hosts, the Jimmy Kimmels, the Stephen Colberts. I mean, they wanted to inflict pain if you dare said, I don't think I'm going to do this first round of vaccines. I don't think I'm going to do this first round of vaccines that they whipped up in 9 months that they supposedly didn't have a head start on. They're using brand new technology, mRNA. Pfizer CEO Peter Bourla, when the vaccine was rolling out, he himself admitted, I'm a little surprised we're using using mRNA because Pfizer's first ever drug, medicine, vaccine, anything that was mRNA was the COVID-19 shot. A lot of people don't know that. It was the first time ever used, certainly at scale, and they had no experience with that product, with that technology. This was their very first product. Now they'll say, oh, we've been studying it. It's been in development for 20 years. But I mean, holy cow, are you suggesting that mRNA technology, first of its kind, this is going to be the first medicine, you're telling me that you hit it out of the park to that degree? Remember, they said it was 99% effective, then 98, then 95. Are you telling me that they whipped that thing up in 9 months and it was a home run? It reminds me of the moon landing. Remember 1969, man on the moon, nailed it first shot. That's what they're going to tell you. But here's what they also did with the COVID shot is they got it right on the first shot. That's a tough sell. So we have to have the division around the COVID. You want to get a vaccine? Go ahead. I never would, never will. You want to do it? Be my guest. You shouldn't. I'd be glad to tell you more if you're open, but we're not going to fight about it. Okay. I have other things way worse going on to deal with you and whether or not I'm going to get a vaccine. Right. So we have to deal with that issue. Okay. That's COVID. That has low probability of agreement, settlement, because it's so partisan, COVID-19. The next one that's current, that's active, that's in our face, and it's the will of the people to have this truly presented the truth, is the Charlie Kirk murder. Charlie Kirk, of course, last September murdered Utah Valley University, Tyler Robinson, the transvestite loving, has just this vendetta against Charlie Kirk because of the way he spoke against the trans community. Well, and of course, Charlie was always just honest about the trans community. He never spoke hate about them. He spoke a ton about biblically, but the biology of it, the XY chromosomes, the fact that you just simply can't do that. Every single cell, right down to the core, that DNA, you're never going to change. It's always going to be male or female, no matter how many boob jobs you get, no matter how many hormones, how much lipstick, how much you spend on wigs. None of that's going to matter from a DNA cellular level. Doesn't matter. That's kind of where Charlie was at with it, and that you can't make a boy into a girl. Well, Tyler Robinson took his grandfather's gun. He went up the roof. He got into the prone. He took that shot first time again. Now, remember, one shot, he had an assembled gun. One shot, he nailed it right in the neck. So what they'll tell you is that this is an entrance wound, hits his neck and then turns down. Okay. How is this? Nobody believes that story. Who's believing it? Well, once again, we have a partisan issue here developing. This time, the right is to be scolded. We just talked about how nasty the left was if you dare said, I'm not doing a vaccine. Shame on you. Let's hurt you. Let's deplatform you. Let's get you out of here. Let's ruin your life. You're not complying. That was the left during COVID. You're seeing a very similar, snarky, nasty, really bitter response from this boomer rhino crowd, MAGA crowd, the new Trump crowd, in which supports the Iran war, same kind of deal. They're looking at those of us who say, well, hold on a second, that can't possibly be a 30-06 from 150 yards, and that his neck bone ricocheted the bullet down into his body, when every other shot experiment that we're seeing these demos online. They're putting a cow neck and a bone or a pig head, and they're shooting a 30-06, and it's pulverized. It's exploding the thing. I mean, Charlie's poor head would have just blown to smithereens, certainly blown off of his head, right? So we know that can't be, okay? We now are having all these inconsistencies in the Tyler Robinson. He assembled the gun. He disassembled the gun. He reassembled it without his screwdriver this time. They're going back and forth on that. They don't have a bullet match. They don't have a fingerprint match on that. He came down on the jump down. He came down that building as glass, and the glass got him. He touched him. he didn't leave any fingerprint. They can't match the fingerprints to him, to Tyler Robinson. Now, I don't care about Tyler Robinson. I'm not a fan. I know nothing about him. We just know that he didn't kill Charlie Kirk, at least in the way that they're saying. Now, we can say he was there. Yeah. Was he being set up? Was this being much like the Kennedy assassination? We have a patsy involved. We have the grassy knoll. We have the suppository. Of course, we have the cover up still going off with JFK. But Charlie Kirk's case is different. Charlie Kirk was a wonderful man, a biblical man, a pro-America to the core man, and it was the most brutal assassination we've seen in 60 years. Okay, well, the American people had to watch that. Many Americans, millions of Americans, were fans of his, moved by him, learned a lot from him, and they're saying, this isn't right. This was a good man. That story is not working. A 30-06 from 150 from this, like kind of autistic gay kid? I don't think so. Can we do a proper investigation? But no, Kash Patel, J.D. Vance, that whole wing says, no, this is, we caught him in 33 hours. It's over. Now that's just not going to work for so many Americans. So we have a big cover up, because here's the problem. If Tyler Robinson is not guilty, and it's innocent at court here, remember, you're innocent until proven guilty. Well, then who did it? And now it points directly to intelligence and to government. And of course, that's the worst nightmare for a deceitful criminal government like we have. And the Declaration prescribes you're supposed to throw out governments like this, that behave like this. You're supposed to throw them out. But the problem is we're still so partisan and divided that MAGA, boomer, rhino crowd thinks President Trump is hitting a home run right now. Every word out of his mouth is gold. They're justifying the Iran war. They're justifying the outrageous spending. They're justifying the lack of American progress here. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And that was all they needed. They were so scared to death somehow, from our boomers right now, Iran having a nuclear weapon is like above every single concern in their personal life. And second place is a long shot. I don't believe that. Do you? Are you really, as a baby boomer, are you really laying awake at night? I mean, the thought that Iran has a nuclear weapon, I can't sleep. That's crazy, right? But that's propaganda. And Trump does that propaganda each and every day. So the Charlie Kirk case is trouble if we have a Tyler Robinson not guilty. We have a major problem. And I don't think it can actually make it. I think they have to kill poor Tyler before it gets there. You can't present this case to a jury. Are you kidding me? What accident reconstructionist, what analyst, gunshot analyst is going to sign off on that this can happen? No autopsy? I mean, and give me a break. And his wife, I'm sorry, I've never seen a more bizarre, insane response to a husband's death. I've never seen it. I never heard of it. I don't think you could cast that as a character in a creepy movie. I mean, she's one of a kind. I'm sorry, repulsive. So you have too many questions unanswered when it comes to the Charlie Kirk case. And like we said on the left, the right has now gone after its own, its fellow man, its fellow Republican. If they say, hey, we don't think that was we think the narrative's a lie. We want to hear something else. That's not going to work, right? They want to attack you. You're anti-Semitic somehow. You're anti-American somehow if you question the Charlie Kirk murder, right? That one has a lot greater chance of getting resolved once Trump's not in office. The problem is the left doesn't care about that issue at all. So that one has very little government ability. It would be the will of the people to demand this, okay? And these 12 jurors that are going to get selected for this, the pressure, the heat, the script they're going to be given. I mean, could you imagine a not guilty Tyler Robinson? What on earth is that going to do? And it's not going to be not guilty on a technicality. It's going to be not guilty because this evidence that was presented, we all got to see. And are you kidding me? Could you imagine being accused of a crime with this kind of evidence? That's going to be a really tough thing for the country. It does need to be resolved, though. Likelihood, low. Nobody wants to. Nobody cares on the left. And then everyone on the right wants it squashed, wants it buried, get it to go away. Okay. So you have COVID. You have Charlie Kirk's murder. And then you have the worst one of all, but there's a little hope at the end. But the worst one of all that has incredible division. Again, the right mostly eating its own on this one. But of course, the Epstein files. The Epstein files should not be a partisan issue, and it's heavy partisan. But here's the crimes we're talking about. People of privilege, people of wealth, people of power are in these files talking about, discussing, committing crimes against children, celebrating it, bragging about it. Okay. They've redacted these senders. They've redacted the contact info. The DOJ is fighting like a dog to not have to release any more Epstein files. Judge Emmett Sullivan has ordered, you're actually in violation of federal law, turn them over. Todd Blanche has done so. They're in his hands now, Judge Emmett Sullivan's hands now. Time frame, whatever's going to happen there, we don't know yet, but that's beginning to change. They are suggesting that he will make a ruling after he's seen this evidence, and he'll say you have to release these. And now the DOJ will immediately appeal. And so you have to ask yourself, this doesn't work, right? The Epstein files shouldn't be a partisan issue. People of privilege were hurting children, and they tell us that it was only Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay, that can't be true. We have thousands of victims that have testified, given many statements that it was more than Jeffrey and Ghislaine. Todd Blanche doesn't want to talk to them. Nobody wants to help the victims, the Epstein file victims. Everybody wants to discredit them, mostly on the right. Again, the left. What's so odd about the left, who hates Donald Trump so much, that's how you know the Epstein files are real. The left hates Donald Trump more than anyone, as much as Jesus or more, right? A true hatred for Donald Trump, most of the Democrat people. This is one that they could totally expose him on, burn him on, humiliate him on, make his life miserable on. They're not doing that. And you have to ask why. Why? We had Trump on the ropes. Epstein files, the end of January 2026. Pam Bondi's ridiculous testimony in front of Congress mid-February. He was on the ropes. Donald Trump, that's why he started the war, of course, at that time. We had to get the heat away from the files. But they had him ever since then, and they've given up. They're not pursuing it. And we know why. So their friends are the same. Their friends are involved too. If you peel back those redactions, you're going to find Democrats in there, Republicans in there, Jewish people in there, Middle Eastern. You're going to find everything, and we don't care. We want them all. See, our policy is simple. You touch our kids and we'll kill you. You understand? That has to be that's not partisan. Democrats should shake hands with Republicans. Hey, are you totally against pedophiles, and should we hang them if they kill kids or hurt kids? I'm with you. That's a no-brainer. That's so easy for Democrats and Republicans to lock in. Why are we not doing that? Why would the Department of Justice, Trump's Department of Justice, fight like this to not give us the files? Don't you want to get bad guys off the streets? They always brag about Kash Patel's FBI. We just busted another 300, blah, blah, blah. We rescued these children. You know, they're trying to say they're doing a good job. Wouldn't you want to get more of them right here? We have Jeffrey Epstein supplying this huge client list, names, email. We have smoking guns everywhere. Don't you want to interview them? Maybe they were just there for lunch. We'll find out. Don't you want to talk to them? Talking about abusing children. I mean, come on. I love the torture video. FBI's first question: who was being tortured? And then why would you love that? You're a person that we're supposed to believe. I mean, so it's a partisan issue. Shouldn't be protecting our kids. When did that become partisan? And we know it's crept that way because the left is disgusting with the LGBTQ, the homosexuality, the woke stuff, the trans stuff. Of course it's gross. Of course it's repulsive, right? But shouldn't we even isn't that the bottom? Do you have to also go along with it's okay to rape a kid? Why? Why would you think like that? Shouldn't be a partisan issue, and it is. That's a disgrace here in America. But the Epstein files, it absolutely must. There is no other alternative. It must be fully investigated, fully prosecuted, and then justice has to be served. Depending on the crime, we have years in jail. We have death penalty for these crimes that are in the Epstein files. And it doesn't matter if you're a filthy rich billionaire or a senator or a Jewish person or an oil tycoon. It doesn't matter in this case. If you touch a kid, we have to kill you. I'm sorry. It's the way it works. And of course, you've seen some states kind of inch up, creep up their, really going after, you hurt a kid under 12, we're going to kill you. And that's just a message as Americans that should be so embraced. Are you kidding? If it's not embraced, we have of course, a spiritual problem, but like a really immediate life support spiritual problem. If we can't come together and agree, you shouldn't be touching children 6 years old. Are you kidding me? A culture that would allow one of those is a disgrace. And so that has to get clarity. Here's the problem. The people that have to investigate this and really make a big deal of this are also well connected to parts and pieces inside the Epstein files. Trump says to Marjorie Taylor Greene, I can't release the files because it's going to hurt my friends. It's going to embarrass my friends. And she says, well, screw your friends. It's not about your friends. They rape kids. They hurt kids. They kidnap kids. In some cases, bragged about eating kids. We don't care about your friends' feelings anymore. And she was let go, basically kicked out of politics as a result of that. And so Trump went after her hard. And so just where are we not understanding or connecting? We have crimes against children and an administration actively looking to suppress all the evidence that would bring us charges against those that hurt you. Don't you have to stop and ask why? The MAGA person says, well, it's because it's a Democrat hoax, but yet the Democrats are clearly in there. Republicans are, it has meat on the bones. We have the names. We can go after these people. The far right person says, no, it's fake. So why would we want to release it? Right. The left, see, it's actually more Democrats, more Jews in it than it is Republicans on the right, but they're both in it. Don't get me wrong. So they have a lot to, and the people that are making all the shots, making Trump go to war, okay, they're on the left and they're going to get hurt by that. So as much as they hate Trump, and they do, it's not worth burning their entire house down to get Donald Trump. Not yet, not at this time. And so stalemate, the people that have to investigate this and go after this have the least incentive to do so. Only bad can come from it. Only bad can come from the release of the Epstein files. If you're in the government's perspective, that's why they're fighting it so hard. But when they're fighting it so hard, don't you step back and say, wow, I think something is going on here. I think something is really bad going on here, and I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm going to ask more questions, and I'm not just going to give you my blind support anymore. Mr. President, what is going on with the Epstein files? If Donald Trump knew he had no support left to cover up the files, he's toast. So he's still playing to that, and we need an ongoing war to distract, because when that is over, we have to deal with this issue. We have to deal with these issues regarding Epstein files. Okay. Well, let's put it like this. Epstein is the only one that you have to actually get done before we can have a new country, a fresh country, a chance country, not a so inflated, corrupt, dangerous, violent country. Epstein is just the one that would wipe the slate clean. It's going to take care of bad Republicans, going to take care of bad Democrats, going to take bad foreign players, bad CEOs, bad companies. That one actually is a full reset. We're back, America. Got to get all the Epstein file players. And then the message is clear. Don't you ever try this in government. Don't you ever try this with our children. Don't you dare think you're going to hide files and play games when it comes to crimes against children. You got it? And if we have to make some really big scenes out of some folks, that's fine. That's fine to do this because it's that serious when it comes to kids. Okay. We're going to be back tomorrow night, folks. Remember, hit subscribe everywhere you get your shows. Tell a friend, share, and do this until next time. Serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.